A rebel leader called Grindcob said from the gallows, "Hold firm while you can, and have no thought of me or what I may suffer. If I die for the cause of liberty, I shall think myself happy to end my life as a martyr." On the king's spiteful orders, Grindcob was left hanging, for, in the king's words, as long as he could last. When the townsfolk defiantly cut him down and buried him, the king returned his decaying remains to the noose. A commission of Oye and Termine, hear and determine, would sentence both men and women to swing. One Nicola Carter was charged with riding armed through the countryside and inciting commoners to rise against the king. When John Ball was arrested, he refused to plead for mercy, saying simply, "I have done no wrong." He was hanged, drawn and quartered on July 15th, but this anarchist monk lives on in song.
Who will be the lady, who will be the lord, when we are ruled by the love of one another? Tell me, who will be the lady, who will be the lord, in the light that is coming in the morning? Sing John Ball and tell it to them all. Long live the day that is dawning, and I'll crow like a cock, I'll carol like a lark, for the light that is coming in the morning.
On completing his cruel commission, Walworth was knighted, then later buried in St. Michael's Church, Crooked Lane. The city has put up a statue to its sadistic role model at Holborn Viaduct, to a man who used money's power to cause pain. Walworth's successors are as self-serving as Tyler's slaughterer, for the modern city makes money by investing in arms and getting psyched up by the profits from speculative deals, without its ever caring about whom it harms. The city is Britain's answer to the cold-hearted Wall Street, that other imperialist haven for hedge fund traders. It's a city that ensures economics is free of either morality or empathy, thanks to its lavish rewards for bankers and corporate raiders. The city's money moguls fund political parties with bribery, giving them access to party leaders if they swell party treasuries, so it becomes a politician's priority to please his financiers, and such corruption has been acceptable for centuries.
And why rail I on this commodity? But for because he hath not wooed me yet. Not that I have the power to clutch my hand when his fair angels would salute my palm, but for that my hand as unattempted yet, like a poor beggar raileth on the rich. Well, whiles I am a beggar, I will rail, and say there is no sin but to be rich. And being rich, my virtue then will be to say there is no vice but beggary. Since kings break faith upon commodity, gain, be my lord, for I will worship thee.
Yet while the city gambles on the price of commodities, and while 60,000 die daily from starvation, it's as if the knife that killed Tyler, the People's Tribune, is still putting pay to human aspiration.
But the City of London is the goose that lays the golden egg, its apologists say, to ring-fence it with superstition. If you disturb it, you do so at your peril, for it'll just fly away, and use much-needed capital to enrich another nation. They overlook that the goose is giving off toxic fumes, and that it fouls its own nest in the murkiest of layers, where it's geared to privatizing public assets and hiding the profits. The golden goose turns what's ours into theirs. It serves to conduct unaccountable business deals in its elegant privatized Georgian squares, where, thanks to deregulation initiated by Thatcher, criminal fraud is called dealing in shares. J.P. Morgan, the city investment bank, hires Buckingham Palace for a dinner hosted by the arms-dealing Duke of York. It's attended by the bank's clients, criminals such as Tony Blair. It's pork double-barrel politics with golden knives and crested forks. City banks like to devise cunning financial instruments, hedging products such as those called swaps. Sexy loans are offered with unnoticed interest increases, ensuring victims go bankrupt and their lives collapse.
The City of London's legions of coke-sniffing hedonists in their pinstripe suits, mauve shirts and Ferraris are protected by politicians and a compliant police force, all of whom think city personnel are beyond query. London's square mile of thieves is really a drug den, for, according to Sigmund Freud, wealth's a drug of which addicts need ever-increasing doses to function in their dysfunctional void. As being enslaved by such a drug widens the empathy gap, the well-heeled and minted don't have to imagine how the other half lives, being convinced that their status allows them to overlook compassion. One 19th century reformer compared the city to a prehistoric monster which had mysteriously survived into the modern world. This Victorian monster would cry, "Freedom for money," and it makes the same ugly cry today. Given the city's deregulation, Wall Street used it to commit frauds that in the US would have led to criminal conviction. Bundles of worthless subprime mortgages were sold through London, leading to a stock market crash and to mass eviction. The city would concoct fraudulent financial products, such as repackaging debt as an asset, selling air, to be used as leverage and then to boost confidence, while all the time there was nothing at all there. The city headhunts in universities to find mathematicians who'll cook up sophisticated algorithms that enable it to steal a march on market rivals by glimpsing fluctuating price movements ahead of time. The city's there to lubricate human nature at its nastiest. Take Lord Rothermere, the proprietor of the Daily Mail. The city helps him to hide his millions in Bermuda's tax havens, being the profits from a paper that has xenophobia for sale. A supporter of Hitler was once made an hereditary peer, which enabled him to become a British legislator. "Hurrah for the black shirts," cried the first Lord Rothermere, and his family still hires professional race haters. An ex-employee summed up Rothermere's paper perfectly. The ideal Daily Mail story leaves the reader hating somebody or something, for it demonizes the weak so that others can think themselves superior. The city's dagger has come to symbolize a financial fascism, whose message is that justice is trumped by money and force. The sinister sign, all over the city of London's square mile, sums up a sham democracy pierced by money's Trojan horse. The city's history is of greedy men cornering the market, making their fortune by raising the price of food, then being given a title to give themselves airs and graces, so as to make them and their families feel good. The city father of a British Prime Minister made 30 million, a fortune which he passed down to his Tory son. David Cameron Sr. set up tax havens in Geneva and Panama, thus warranting the perennial jibe, "Tory scum." Ian Cameron was a senior director of Blairmore Holdings, which took advantage of capital controls being lax. The PM's father's company sought sophisticated investors, in other words, those wishing to avoid British tax. As always, city finance capital funds the Tory party to ensure that it dances to the monster's tune. Don't prosecute warmongers. There's money in bombs. Spare all those born with a silver spoon. In the city's square mile, there's no industry, just coffee chains. Like the upas tree, nothing grows in the city's shade. Its dark towers are for devotees of Shakespeare's saint-seducing gold. They stand for humanity's shadow side, where nothing's made. In them lurk the gnomes of Zurich and Moloch's high priests, looking down upon the world that they happily milk, transforming London into money-laundering global capital. serving rich clients with perfect teeth and smiles of silk. Crooked officials who loot their countries know they've access to shell companies in a global financial centre, falling over itself to secure their wealth and to sell them billion-pound palaces and be their money mentors. According to the watchdog Transparency International, the world capital of dirty money is London. There's even a Corruption Perceptions Index, singling out the city as the fruits of corruption's #1 home. So it's understandable when the victims of money's violations sometimes rise up and give their oppressors a jolt. For billionaire vampires who steal others' lives are an affront, and they can also stir memories of the peasants' revolt.
The Corruption Perceptions Index forces governments around the world to take notice of corruption. But recognizing the problem is only part of the solution. Transparency International helps citizens to demand accountability from their leaders. And we show governments what they can do to tackle corruption. Working together, we can make corruption a thing of the past.